Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning Five here on Monday, April 8th, 2019. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Steve Helwagen. Steve, we're going to go through kind of the biggest question marks as the Buckeyes wrap up spring ball this week. That'll culminate with, of course, the spring game this Saturday. Let's start with the quarterback position. Do you feel like Justin Fields is definitely the guy there?
Oh, no question about it. I think based on what we saw last week, we got to go to the practice on Friday, and they had basically a full-scale scrimmage to a degree, I suppose, and he took 90% of the reps with the first team as far as I could tell. I think at the end they switched it up and had Matthew Baldwin work a little bit with the first team, and then Chris Jagunoff worked with the second team, which was his only action, really. So, and as my recollection, he got in there and threw 2 touchdown passes in rapid-fire succession. The chugger did. So if they have to go to number 3, he is tanned, rested, and ready. But no, it's Fields' job. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. I mean, Baldwin may come out in the spring game on Saturday and throw like a house of fire, and maybe some people will start to think, hey, he's pushing him for this job. But I think it was one of our posters made the very astute observation that when Day said that they're very comparable in terms of completion percentage this spring, then that's advantage Fields, because he is clearly the better runner. So, I mean, he made a run. You were there. At one point, he kept it and got to the end of the line of scrimmage and cut on a dime and just squirted through the secondary. And I'm not sure anybody would have caught him. So he is electric as a runner. So he brings that extra facet. And that's what, in a lot of ways, makes him a special player.
Yeah. And of course, if they got a fingertip on him at the scrimmage, he was considered down wearing that black no contact jersey. And Matthew Baldwin, for those that are wondering, was also wearing a black no contact jersey in the scrimmage. So yeah, that really does take away when you're Justin Fields is he really is a pass first quarterback. And when he decides to run, he is electric. So it's gonna be interesting to see how much they use that quarterback run this year. As you look at this offensive line, obviously replacing 4 starters, and not just what they have this spring, Steve. Obviously projected ahead, they're gonna have Thayer Mumford back from injury. They're gonna have Jonah Jackson in, the Rutgers transfer. Just as you look at this offensive line heading into 2019, the season, what's your confidence level?
Very high. I think that the development of Nicholas Petit-Frere is really something, and he's a guy who honestly may not play that much unless they rotate tackles in, because I'm fully expecting the tackles to be Thayer Mumford and Brandon Bowen. I think Josh Myers is pretty well set at the center position, although you got Matthew Jones and the freshmen coming in, Harry Miller, who are also going to be pushing for that job. I think the guards, it seems to me Wyatt Davis, who started the end of last year, would be one of them. And then probably Jonah Jackson, the transfer from Rutgers with 2 years experience playing in the Big Ten. It would seem to me that is his job to lose, even though he's not there. I watched some of the pass rush and pass blocking drills while you guys were all watching the 7-on-7, all the sexy stuff down at the one end, including the fight that was going on down there between an unnamed wide receiver and an unnamed defensive back.
I think they've been named by now, but yeah,
they've been named, but we're not pushing that. Let's just say that. So I got to watch each guy probably pass rush 3 or 4 times, one-on-one, and also pass block 3 or 4 times. And Petit-Frere has really come on. I don't have any doubt that Jonah Jackson, what I'm driving at is I don't have any doubt after watching that drill that Jonah Jackson is probably going to come in and take take the other guard spot. I think that seems to me like that's where things are headed. So that's 7 or 8 pretty good players. I know Gavin Cupp has been repping a little bit as well, but I think it's Jackson's job to lose once he arrives. And again, that's 7 or 8 pretty good players that they have developed. I didn't even mention Josh Olave, who was starting the other day at tackle because Brandon Bowen had been kicked inside because Wyatt Davis was sick. So that's the great thing about Bowen. He's got the ability to play 4 positions on that offensive line and could be the Swiss Army knife. I almost said Swiss utility. It's early in the morning and I can't remember my funny sayings, but
I like Swiss Army knife. That's
Swiss Army knife. Yeah,
it's usually used for a skill guy, but why can't a big guy also be a Swiss Army knife?
I agree, and I'll just bring it home and say I like what I see. They don't have a lot of experience playing together. Only one guy's a quote returning starter, although Bowen started previously, and Jonah Jackson has 2 years of starting experience at Rutgers. But Wyatt Davis has started 2 games. But I think they've got the potential to be an outstanding offensive line.
And I look at this wide receiving core, and I like this group a lot. The one thing, others have said this to me, and I've thought about it. They don't really have maybe as much speed as they had last year. You look at, obviously Paris Campbell has speed for days, but even Terry McLaurin, they're losing some speed. But I don't want to confuse it though. They're still going to be very athletic. Let's just look at what Ben Victor did, against Penn State, that unbelievable play he made. And Austin Mack, if he stays healthy and he looks good right now, he's an athletic dude. And Chris Olave is the one guy probably might be the fastest of the group. KJ Hill's not a fast guy as far as being a burner at the college level, but man, he's a really, really, really good college wide receiver, maybe even a great college wide receiver. I don't know how well he'll do at the NFL level, but he catches everything. I think he'll at least play in the NFL. Short story long, as I finally get to the question here. I mean, are you concerned this wide receiving core is not explosive enough, or do you just love this wide receiving core? Where do you come down when you look at the wide receivers?
I think it's going to be a good receiving core. I don't know yet if we're looking at greatness. I think Ryan Day made an impassioned comment the other day that to be a championship team, your great players have to play great. And KJ Hill and Austin Mack potentially are great players, both of them in their senior year, which is hard to believe. In Mack's case, it's kind of gone by in a blink. KJ Hill, a 5th-year senior, a little bit different. And Ben Victor, same thing. He's had scratched the surface even back to his freshman year against Maryland, and then up through everything else he did. You mentioned the Penn State. They don't win that game probably if he doesn't make that one play, and that was the determining factor in a lot of ways, and then winning the division probably too. So, I don't know. It to me, I think that there is great potential there. Jalen Gill can fill in at the H receiver position. Demario McCall, depending on where he lines up, could be in the receiver group or the running back group. He could help out there. I like that Brian Hartline and Ryan Day have decided to go with the 3 seniors as the starters. In principle, I mean, things will change game to game. But Victor, Austin Mack, and KJ Hill will get the first chance. And then you have Jalen Harris, who can help them tremendously. And the time's kind of running down on him. He's already a junior, I believe. He needs to step up, and he's watched a lot of games the last 2 years, sat behind great players, and no fault of his. But his time is now. Chris Olave, what can you say after what he did at the end of last season? He's explosive. He's ready to go.
CJ Saunders is the other one probably in the mix. Yeah,
CJ Saunders. As I was going back over my notes, Elijah Gardner made a couple plays in that scrimmage we read the other day. And even that walk-on, Garen
Prater looked great. Garen Prater looked great. Kid for those that don't know who the hell we're talking about, kid from Cincinnati, Wyoming. Could have been a D2 scholarship guy, maybe even a MAC scholarship guy. Was a preferred walk-on.
Yeah.
3rd-year sophomore, big, tall, rangy wide receiver. Also was a basketball player in high school. Garen Prater, I tell you, man, I think he was the star of the entire scrimmage. You know what though? I think somebody edged out Garen Prater, and that would be Zach Harrison, who I've now nicknamed
Sack,
Sack Harrison.
Sack Harrison. Sack had a very good scrimmage. Sack had a very good, and you should have seen him in the pass block, pass rush drills. Oh, good Lord. He did get smothered in by the thing with him is he's a little undersized weight wise, probably to go in and play at the Big Ten level this year. But when he's able to play in space and use that athleticism and get his steps in and run around people, I think he can succeed. And I'm certain that Coach Marotti will get him to the preferred weight through dieting. And somebody said in this same vein, Petit Ferrer is intaking 8,000 calories a day. He came in at like 270, and he's got like, what, a 6'5", 6'6" frame. He's got the ability to be up to 300 probably without too much hurting too much of his athleticism. And I would say, I mean, I'm not predicting Sack Harrison's going to be a 300-pound player, but get him in the 260 range, 270, and now you've really got somebody or something, I think. One wide receiver I didn't mention was Garrett Wilson, the freshman, and I think
good call.
He looked great to me in drills. I think they threw a deep ball to him that he was wide open, and the defensive back recovered and batted it away. But I don't recall him. He maybe had a couple catches, but I think he is a guy that could potentially help them right away as a true freshman. So
I'm glad you remembered that, because all the listeners would have got on us for forgetting.
Oh, they would have killed us. You forgot Garrett Wilson? It would have been all caps with exclamation points.
Yeah, just a 5-star receiver, no big deal. And Garrett Wilson, not only is he looking good out there, he's getting some run with the first team. Now they're rotating a ton of guys. We're going to talk about the defense here in a second, just like they're doing on defense. So a lot of guys, for example, are getting playing time with the first team and the second team on both offense and defense. You have a lot of wide receivers that are doing that. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Garrett Wilson. That he's a guy that's definitely going to play. Ryan Day's talked about that. He'll be in the rotation. He will definitely play. I think they're going to play probably 6 or 7 wide receivers, and he will be one of them. Okay, as we move along to the defense, do you think this defense will be a strength this year? It was a weakness last year. I like what I'm seeing. Do you think it'll be a strength this year?
Yeah, I made the comment or the question. I asked Ryan Day, they kind of got sucked along on a 13-1 Big Ten Rose Bowl championship team last year. They won in spite of them in many cases. I mean, you think about Maryland, my goodness, that was a debacle of the highest order. They gave up 50 points and somehow won the game. Or 51, maybe. I don't even 52-51, maybe was there 51-50?
52-51. I think they won the game because of the best damn passing quarterback in Ohio State history, Dwayne Haskins.
Decided for one game, I'm going to run the ball. People who have really dug in on Dwayne Haskins and assessed his game have brought that up, that, when he wants to run the football, not to digress off on our defense, but on our defensive discussion, but I saw one draft analyst, I forget who it was, who really did his homework and said in this one game, one time in 14 games, he was determined to run the football, and it was very good results. So I give credit to that guy, whoever it was, that really honed in on, that ability's there for Haskins if he needs it. He's not a fast guy, but he is a big guy, and he can run the ball if need be. Defense, yes, I think it's going to be much improved. I think that, they're going to put the guys, first of all, in better position. And I think they're talking about using some zone. We're getting away from this square peg, round hole thing that they kind of painted themselves into a corner on. We are a press man team. Well, you didn't have press man corners at the Big Ten level last year. So now it's, you've given up a 50-yard play because you're trying to play a defense that did not suit your personnel. So these guys, Jeff Athley and Greg Madison, are mixing in some zone concepts, mixing in some different personnel packages, and doing things a little bit different. They're actually using some common sense here. And I think that until you get your roster the way you want it to be, and I don't want to say that there's major deficiencies with this roster, but the one thing that Ryan Day and Greg Madison both pointed out was the one area on defense where Ohio State had been recruiting well was on the defensive line, and they have a plethora of defensive linemen, and they are going to play a four-man defensive line because of that, because they feel that is the strongest position group on defense, and it makes no sense to take one of those guys off the field in favor of a linebacker or a fifth defensive back. So I think you're going to see a steady four-man. Now, that isn't to say I think in some situations they may go three, very rarely, and that we have seen that over the years, but it's very, very few and far between where they do that. So predominantly 90% or 95% of the time they're going to be a 4-3 team or a four-man front team. And when I watch that scrimmage, Dave, I'm jotting down the numbers of the players. And the first time the first team came out, they had four guys. The next time the first team came out, they had four different guys. Then the second team had four guys. And then the second time the second team came out, they had four more guys. So what that tells me is that they've designated those two four-man groups that played against the ones. They're all starters. Those are the top 8 defensive linemen. And those 8 are going to rotate quite a bit. And the guys who are basically the first group of the twos are also going to play a good little bit. So that's a 3-man rotation at all 4 spots and no slippage. I think that is going to be dynamite to watch them stop the run, contain the run at least, and get after opposing passers. Am I ready to say this is Vrabel, Finkus, Winfield, Garnett, and Luke Fickell, or whatever the great defensive line Ohio State has had? They had some great ones with Pitcock and Hayward and, Vernon Golston and whoever. But, I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be one of their better ones, no doubt. And the defense as a whole, because those guys are going to set the tone, is going to be much better for it.
And it's going to be extremely deep. Like we might have seen maybe better starting units, although I love the starting unit. Either Chase Young is going to be, in my opinion, a top 10 draft pick. B.B. Landers is just a tremendous college defensive tackle. I don't know how his game will translate to the NFL level. Devon Hamilton really, really came on. And then Jonathan Cooper being the 4th and final starter, although Tyreek Smith is going to play just as much as a starter would, and he might push Jonathan Cooper for that job. I mean, I like both those guys, but Tyreek Smith is a guy that seems to always be making plays. And then they've got 13 total defensive linemen. They've got a 3 deep plus 1 that they can use. It's just, and even the third team guys are guys that would be starters at a lot of places. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah,
a guy people aren't talking all that much about, Javonte Jean-Baptiste. He did pretty well in the pass rush drill, and he actually sparked and made a couple plays, I thought, during the scrimmage as well. He's a guy, Haskell Garrett looked pretty good, I think, on a couple of tackles for loss. Zach Harrison, as you talked about, much of his work was confined to going against the second team offensive line, and they at times made life pretty miserable for Baldwin. But I'm very bullish on this. I think Malik Harrison at outside linebacker is going to be a stud. I think they got a real quandary at middle linebacker because I think you got 3 guys who could play with Tuff Borland, who's out he was out at least Friday with a knee injury, it seemed. And then Baron Browning and Taraja Mitchell. The 3 of them, are very good players, and I wonder if one of them may get shifted outside. Pete Werner is the other outside linebacker, and it seems to me a lot of his reps are going to be usurped by this bullet just to get, a 5th DB who has some linebacker tendencies on the field. I think it's going to look a lot better when the safety, Jordan Fuller, is back healthy. It looked like Pryor was starting at the other safety position in place of him. The corners were Arnett and Okuda, I believe. Sean Wade, I'm not sure. I don't know if I saw much of him, if he was out there.
He was out there a decent amount. He was moving back and forth between safety and nickel, another guy that was out there.
Okay.
Just got first team reps rested a little bit, played some safety, played some, he was always the number one nickel. You touched on something, though, that I do want to hit on with the linebackers, especially at middle linebacker. We saw it in 2014. It's pretty rare to see a rotation at linebacker. Like Ohio State runs this deep rotation that we just talked about on the defensive line, and it's going to be even deeper than usual this year. And that's not commonplace with linebackers, but we've seen it work here and there. Like 2014 with Curtis Grant, Raekwon McMillan, they rotated almost 50-50. By the end of the year, it was Curtis Grant's job. It was more like 90-10 by the end of the year when they were in the playoffs in the national championship game. So it can be done. How do you envision that shaking out? Do you think they're going to rotate? Like Tuff Borland's obviously going to play, but I think Taraja Mitchell needs to play, and Baron Browning might be that guy that you talked about that's going to move outside, if I had to guess. Maybe you can make the argument all three of those guys need to play. Do you think we're going to see some rotation at the linebacker spots this year?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Al Washington and Greg Madison coming in from Michigan, forget the fact that they're coming in from Michigan. They're coming in from the outside. And I've watched Madison, and he works quite a bit because I think they all believe Larry Johnson and Kenny Anoike, his grad assistant or whatever, have the defensive line pretty much mastered. And that's been Madison's bailiwick, as our friend Tim May would say. That is his bailiwick. That is his area of expertise over the years. And so he's been helping out Al Washington because Hafley and Barnes are working together on the secondary. And Madison has kind of sunk his teeth into the linebacker group from the things that I could tell on the field. And so they're going to get the three best guys out there. And what I'm coming around the bend to tell you is they're coming in from the outside, and they have no allegiances to any of these people. They didn't recruit any of them, and they haven't coached any of them previously. They have no preconceived notions. I mean, they may have put the tape on from last year just to see, what was what. But, and of course, Ryan Day will fully tell them that this was, a little bit messy last year. But I think that they're going to play the best guy. It may not be Borland, who's really got 2 years of starting experience under his belt. It could be Mitchell. And I guess time will tell. And Ryan Day sheepishly was asked about that in particular. And he said, yeah, that's one that's going to continue over into fall camp. So basically he's kicked the can down the line in a good way and say, look here, guys, you show up every day, bring it, work hard. And whoever is the best on August the 20th is probably going to get that call. And good luck to y'all is kind of the feeling in my mind. Is no one's going to play just by default anymore. I mean, they had to scrape a Borland together with, duct tape and whatever to get him out on the field last year because in their mind, he was the only one they had who could make plays at that position. And I don't know what that says about the other guys. I mean, you had guys like Keandre Jones, and there was another one who'd been around for a while that never saw, under penalty of death, never saw the field. Oh, Hilliard, it took like 3 injuries for Hilliard to finally play. And he did play pretty well in the one game that he played, but he never came back after that. And, when the guys got healthy again. So to me, it's going to be a much better linebacker group. And I think competition, the best will play.
Great insights, as always, from Steve Helwagen. Thank you very much, Steve, and thanks to all listeners out there for tuning in to the show. I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.